You're not falling apart. You're becoming someone new. This conversation is about more than burnout. It's about what happens when your life looks full on paper, but doesn't feel like yours anymore. It's about outgrowing old identities, rebuilding self trust, and finding your way back to yourself in a gentler, more honest way. Welcome back to the Comeback Show. I'm Jen Fast, and this is the place where we talk about what it really looks like to rebuild your life after burnout, after big life changes, and after the world's expectations stop fitting your real life. Today's episode feels extra special to me because my guest is someone I've known since the third grade. Melissa Whitaker and I went to elementary school together, graduated in the same high school class, and if you had known us back then, you probably would have said we were very different. She was the outgoing cheerleader, and I was the quiet nerd. But regardless, there was always mutual respect there. Like so many people do, we lost touch after high school. Then recently, after Melissa joined Facebook and started sharing about her own huge midlife transition, we reconnected. She was posting about selling family businesses, moving to a new state, and stepping into the healing and coaching work she had wanted to do for decades. I was moving through my own reinvention after burnout too. And once we started talking, it was one of those reminders that you never really know how much you might have in common with someone until you're willing to be open, honest, and vulnerable. Melissa helps women move from overwhelm to calm confidence and reconnect with themselves as they navigate life and career transitions. And I'm really glad she's here. Melissa, welcome to the Comeback Show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, Melissa, for listeners meeting you for the first time, can you share a little bit about who you are, the work you do now, and what brought you to this chapter in life?
Well, I'm an energy healer. I've been an energy healer for 27 years. And just last year, upon selling our businesses, I also became a life coach, and I'm specializing in small business life coaching, but also in empowerment and identity shifting into the bigger you that you know you are inside. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on. And what brought me here? Well, in my 20s, I had an experience where I was in a room where someone fell down the stairs and got a big egg on their head, and everybody was freaking out. It was kind of an intense situation. The mom was really worried, the kid's really crying, and something came through me, and I put my hands on her and just felt this energy coming through. And I heard this internal voice say, "You know how to do this?" And it kind of helped, but I also afterwards was like, what was that? How did I do that? But it did set me on a little bit of a quest. And then the second part of that is my husband, who then was my boyfriend, and I traveled all around the world, and I got parasites in Nepal, and that was another thing that set me on a quest for seeking healing. Western medicine couldn't find the parasites, so I was seeking alternative healing, went to many like homeopath, acupuncturist, and found my way to energy healing school. And at the school, it number one healed my parasites, and number two, I got again this feeling of like, this is your life path. This is what you're meant to do. And I just sobbed. I sobbed and sobbed at that feeling of like something in me knew that I was meant to be a healer. So I think that has always lived in me, and I wanted to have my own retreat center and be a healer. This is in my late 20s. And my husband felt like it's hard to make a living doing that. His ultimate dream wasn't to own pizzerias, but it's what his whole family did. He's Sicilian. And so he kind of said to me, let's just open a pizzeria, maybe two, run them for 10 to 15 years, get our money, get a house. We wanted kids. Let's like really set ourselves up, and then we'll sell them and try to have a retreat business. So that was our plan. The first two, we did open one, and then 5 years later opened another, which the second one was a full restaurant with music and a bar, and they did well. But then my husband got overzealous and created a company with his brothers and opened others. And some of them did well and some of them did not. So the ones that didn't do well started taking all the profits from the ones that did. And we just got into a real financial crisis. We had to take out emergency loans to make payroll. We had to do lots of things. And it just never happened that we were in a great financial place to sell them and open the retreat center. And every time we'd get our savings up, something would happen, including COVID. And then the last piece is this crazy flood that happened in Montpelier that flooded our whole restaurant and the whole town. It was a little before the flood that I knew it was affecting my health. Like the first 10 to 15 years of running the restaurants were actually really fun. I'm very outgoing. I loved the community building. I loved the people. I loved the food piece. I had worked in restaurants before. I loved it in the beginning. But that as the 10 and 15 year mark hit, and I knew my ultimate dream was to be a healer, and I just wanted to work more deeply with people. It was like in my core of my being, this calling. So it started to become harder and harder to be in the restaurants. And at the same time that it started becoming internally harder, because I had this tension between what I really wanted to do and what I was doing. And running restaurants takes a lot of time and energy. The outer world started becoming harder. It was like the universe was like making things harder to say, like, you got to step into your calling. Now, one thing I didn't mention that I want to say is through the whole time, which I think is the only part that kept me truly sane, is I did also have an energy healing practice. 1 day a week, I had a little shared space in Montpelier. So I did get to do my energy healing 1 day a week while we were running the restaurants. And that was like, it was enough for me for a while to feel like I'm doing my work. I'm doing it 1 day a week. But something happened as it went on and on that it just felt like most of my energy was going to running restaurants, which kept getting harder to run in so many reasons. It just kept getting more stressful and harder. And I finally said, this is going to kill me. It came to me like this kind of stress and pressure and constant is taking a toll on my life. And it really hit me when I turned 50, like, I can't keep doing it. And so at 50, I actually decided to be a therapist. I went to grad school, told my managers I was going to grad school. I hired a third manager to help. And then the flood kind of changed that path, because that's when I think it just became clear to my husband upon rebuilding the restaurant and putting them for sale and making that decision that he really needed to live out of Vermont. And for our kids too, I think we needed to move. And, you know, when you're licensed as a therapist, you have to get licensed state to state. So that's when I chose to become a coach. I just deeply want to impact people's lives. I want to help people to heal. I want to help people to like really realize the deeper truths in themselves, the parts that are living in shoulds or out of identity or out of alignment or out of old woundings, and just not living who they really can be if they were living in their fullest self. So that's just what I'm so passionate about.
It reminds me, of my own kind of transition in midlife too. I've shared it with you and I've shared it with my audience before. For me too, there was like a defining last straw moment when I said, I just can't do this anymore. But for a lot of people, and including for me, there's usually a time gap between when you realize I can't keep doing this anymore, but you're not brave enough to take the next step. Was there a specific thing, or what made you finally trust yourself enough to move towards this new path and move your entire family across the country?
It's so funny. Like, I feel like I have two sides to me. I've always been a risk taker. I've traveled all around the world. I've always wanted adventure and like to be out of the box and do wild things. And at the same time, it's also true that throughout my life, I've had a lot of anxiety and a lot of things that like were afraid to really step into my power. So I know both places really well. And I think even in my 20s, I'd met women traveling alone. I wouldn't have traveled alone. I traveled and felt free to travel because I had my boyfriend, now my husband, who traveled with me, and that felt great. But I always admired the women who just traveled alone. I don't know, something about that scared me. So I feel like both of these things lived in me, but I kept doing inner work to keep healing whatever was stopping me, whatever was keeping me limited, whatever was living in my fears. I kept doing that work. And it was in a couples therapy retreat that was right around when I turned 50 that it came through to me. I had just done a big piece of like process, and my energy field got really big. And that's when it became so clear. I heard a voice say, like, if you don't get out of the restaurant business, it will kill you. And what are you living for? Like, you're halfway through your life now. You just turned 50. You can't keep waiting. That's when that was like the sudden, like, I'm going to become a therapist. I have to do this work full time. So that was like the moment it really switched inside. But then life took another turn of events. Then the flood happened. At that moment, my husband at first said, let's just go bankrupt. And I had something in me that was like, no, I want to have like a fighting chance for our future. We're going to rebuild. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know how much of a fight it was going to be to rebuild. My nervous system was definitely in fight or flight. We lost our income. All my employees, 50 employees, were now out of work. We had no restaurant. We had no money. And I'm having to fight to get resources to rebuild because, this is something that a lot of people don't know. When you go through a flood or a fire or a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster, it's really hard to get funding, and the government doesn't give free money to businesses. They give FEMA loans to homeowners, and to businesses, they give low interest SBA loans, which are very hard to get. It took us, I think, like 6 months to actually get the funding. And in the meantime, we did get some money from the state. We did get $130,000 from insurance. We did have insurance, but we were in a flood zone. So the bottom part, the first floor of our restaurant, wasn't covered at all. And the rebuild cost like 800 and something thousand dollars. So it was just a crazy thing. And my nervous system was stressed through that, but I just kept feeling, in that time of stress, I kept feeling like something had to rise within me to be brave to get through that. And it just made me realize, like, I could lose anything, and all this material stuff doesn't come with me to the grave when I die. And so it somehow, my bravery got stronger in the stress. I spoke out at the State House and at the Climate Crisis Convention panel and just was speaking out to try to get the funding. And it just, something was growing in me to be brave and take risk. I have to do it to feel fulfilled in life. And if I don't, I will be on my deathbed feeling like, what did I do? I didn't live my life purpose. And that would be so heartbreaking. So that's kind of all of what happened to make me just feel like I could jump off the cliff and go for it.
Thank you for sharing that. I think so many women are going to hear themselves in parts of that because a lot of us know what it feels like to just keep functioning on the outside while something deeper is no longer working inside. A lot of women listening have lives that look full, successful, fine on paper, but inside they're feeling disconnected, exhausted, or empty. How do you as a coach help someone tell the difference between burnout, boredom, and that deeper feeling that they've outgrown a version of their life?
I can definitely relate to what you just said of just like, I think people on the outside of like seeing me in my restaurant seemed like everything's happy and good, but inside I'm having this calling. So I don't honestly feel like I got burnt out, but I do help people with burnout. And I'll talk about that and what the difference is. For me, it was the last thing you said of just this like this split between I'm just not this person anymore. I'm this person who's running these restaurants. I'm just not that. And I need to, the calling inside, which I think comes through differently for people too. I just kept feeling in my heart and this voice coming through, like it almost felt like an inner tension because I could hear this calling, like I just want to work with people. That feeling that came through in the energy school of like, this is what I'm here to do and I'm not doing it. That tension between what I was doing in the outside and what I was called to do kept getting stronger and stronger. So I think that, I'm not alone in that some people have some kind of a purpose or a life meaning or something they just really deeply long to do, a service they want to provide to the world. Sometimes it's related to like trauma they've been through or a wounding they've been through. Sometimes that's our greatest gift that we then just have so much passion for that we want to give to the world. But to change our life when we have everything on the outside looking like it's successful and it's smooth and everything's working well, it's not easy to transition into something different. I'll go back to the first part of it, which is how do you tell the difference between burnout and boredom? So I feel like the difference, and this is part of my coaching that I do with women, is teaching women to learn how to listen to their body again. Because a lot of our wisdom lives in the body. And especially if we've been someone who's an overachiever and just really pushes ourselves in work because we just want to be productive. If we're a people pleaser, if we don't have great boundaries, if we put other people's needs before our own, we've learned to override our body's signals. We don't listen when we're tired. We don't listen when our body's saying, I just need a rest today, or I just need to take a break. We've been habituated to override that and just push through it anyway, and just, we got to be successful, or we've got to take care of their needs, they're needing me. Those things I think are what happen when we get to burnout. We've just over exhausted ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And what I've noticed in people I've worked with is that burnout shows up in two different ways in the body. It either shows up in overwhelm, because the whole nervous system is having so much cortisol, so much fight or flight, so much hustle, the hustle, got to keep going, right? So that cortisol, and studies have shown that cortisol constantly running in your body has so many negative effects to our body. It affects our heart, it affects our blood, it affects everything. And it honestly, of course, that lifestyle too, it just affects our mental state. I mean, there just comes some time when our whole nervous system is just fried and you almost can't function. So that's one way. And then I think another way I've seen burnout show up in people's bodies is almost like a total shutdown. It's just like a flattening. I think something happens where the nervous system just can't even take it anymore. And there's almost like a flattening, almost like they become cynical. They're numb. They don't even care anymore. There's just a lack of real connection to the body and the self. I think because the same reason, the overriding and the not listening to the body's signals has happened so much that the body kind of shuts down. So those are the ways I've seen burnout show up in people. And my coaching program, I really work with people, when they're burnt out. The thing I work with most is self-care and how to get them to see why they overrode their body systems. What are the belief systems? What are the shoulds? What is the idealized image, which is that ideal version of yourself that you're trying to go for, that's sometimes perfectionist or unrealistic? Just how do you calm the nervous system down? How do you bring in healthy boundaries? How do you learn to say no? If you're feeling guilty, how do we work with that? Because a lot of times people have guilt when they start to say yes to themselves and no to others, when your whole life you've said yes to others before yourself. So we work with all those kinds of things to create more self-care and healthier boundaries. And then I'll speak to boredom. So boredom, I feel shows up, it's kind of similar in a way to the overwhelm when you just become flat. But the difference is you're not feeling any excitement, passion, motivation, stimulation. Your life has no meaning. You're just feeling just so disconnected from life meaning or from passion that there's just a flattening, but it's different than the overwhelm, right? And some of this I might find out just from questioning my clients, about their life. You can tell who's been going and is overwhelmed, and who's just been kind of afraid to take any risks, afraid to take any chances, just kind of feeling flat in life and just not feeling any excitement or motivation or passion or meaning, right? So I think those are all the differences.
I feel like I've lived through all of that. I've gone through a phase where I just felt flat and empty and probably bored, but then also the high stress level of burnout, which was affecting my body. So I can feel that. And then I think you and I have talked in the past about the extra level of complexity that comes with being a woman of our age. Anyone in perimenopause is already going through so many changes in their life that when you add that on top of something else that might be going on, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. What do you see women misunderstanding the most about this new season of their life if they happen to be going through the same thing?
For each woman's different, and I have many different types of women in my life, but I think especially for women who have been used to overriding things in their body, sometimes women just aren't understanding the level of compassion and self-care we need in midlife. It's a naturopath told me that, way back when we hit midlife, it's the time to sit on your porch and watch your grandkids and drink lemonade and start to reflect back on your life, right? And our world is just not set up like that anymore. And in some ways it's sad, and in some ways it's great that we still have time to do all these cool things to do in life. But there is something that I feel happens inside where we need to start listening to our bodies more. We're not young with endless energy, and we cannot keep overriding these signals in our body, because at midlife, something's going to happen where it's just no more. So I think it's really important in midlife that we start listening to our bodies. My body's always having hormonal surges, hot flashes, this, that, whatever, which in some ways sucks. And in some ways, it kind of brings me all the time more in, like, my body's always doing something that makes me tune in. And if I can use it as a way to tune in and listen, like, what is my body needing right now? There's a practice to learning how to listen to our bodies and what's going on. And I do think it can be a gift if we can see it that way. I also have heard many women say that they do feel like two things, a little more anxious. I'm not sure if that's true, but I've heard women say that. I feel that, although it's hard to separate out from my whole life just being kind of totally changed and transitioning. I think just for that reason too, if that is something that a lot of women feel in midlife, it's again like, how can we just be more compassionate? How can we create a safe container for ourselves to have this sensitive or just like a kind of intense experience, but how can we make it nurturing instead of just pushing ourselves more and more and letting the anxiety get worse? And then the other thing I've heard people say is like, I remember hearing this a long time ago. You hear the stories about like the crone years when women just start wearing their purple hats and not giving a crap what the world says. I feel that in myself, like I'm just less caring I mean, not that I've always had a little bit of that rebellious streak in me, but it's come even more like I'm just not caring to be a people pleaser or to care what people think. And I'm more willing to just kind of do what I need to do. And I think that that can be a gift too. And that can help to lead us to listening more to like, what is our gift in life? What is it that we're here to do? You know, everyone's so unique and we all have something so special in each one of us. So let's live it, you know? And I think it's just time. If you haven't done it yet in your life, midlife is the time.
I agree. And I love the way that you look at this season in our lives. I think that when a lot of women can't name what's happening to them, they assume that they're failing when really it's just they may be in a season of becoming someone new. One of the phrases that I love from your work is you aren't falling apart, you're outgrowing a version of yourself. Can you talk about that a little more and why sometimes becoming someone new can feel so uncomfortable?
That was definitely lived in me where I just felt like I couldn't be as functional in my restaurants anymore. I couldn't like when it came time to have to lower the labor scheduling because, you know, it's coming into the slow season. I don't know, something in me just couldn't find the like clarity. And I felt like what happens when there's like something new trying to be birthed inside of you, there's something else, there's like a life purpose, a life meaning that you want to bring out and you keep ignoring it or not living it. And for me, that voice kept becoming stronger and stronger. In this other business world where I'm this other person, this other self, and this is just kind of getting pushed down, it just became harder and harder and harder. And there's times that I'm like, what is wrong with me? I can't like plan right or think right, or there's like a tension inside. And I'm really thankful that I had a spiritual teacher and coach that was able to like help me to tune in inside to really kind of like quiet the outer noise and tune into what my heart and my soul was calling for. Without that guidance, I don't know if I would have got through it. And it is hard to not be like, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling so dysfunctional? Why can't I make this happen? And, you know, and I think when there's like a split inside or there's like overwhelm going on or there's a place where we've like overruled our bodies and we can't like trust our body, because a lot of guidance also comes through the body, through our gut feelings or through feelings we're having in our heart. For me, I also sometimes hear the guide talking to me. Everyone has different ways that they bring in that kind of intuition. But if something's calling to you that you came here to be, or a longing or some bigger identity that you know you're capable of and want to live and you're not living it, I don't know. Yeah, it can feel like you're broken. I think, you know, in my coaching, I just keep helping people to like tune in to trust again their guidance, trust again their body. How do you listen to the signs in your body? I help them to really understand how their body does tell them the signs and to like learn to be able to tell what's happening and to listen to it. And then there was another part of the question that I think I forgot.
Why becoming someone new can feel so uncomfortable before it starts feeling freeing.
That's an important thing to mention. I do think this is really important because this is something that I've been talking about is growth is uncomfortable. And I think it's really important to know that. We like to live in our comfort zone, and I think this is especially true as we age. You know, we want to be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with certain amounts of comfort, but when there's somewhere where you need to grow, because we should always still be growing. This is how we still stay passionate and alive and thriving and energized, right? If you just stay in comfort and nothing ever changes, boredom can set in, restlessness sets in. Like, you know, it's always good to grow, but we have to know that to grow, we have to kind of go out of our comfort zone. And the more you go out of your comfort zone, the more you're going to grow. And when you first leave your comfort zone, it's uncomfortable. It's so scary. And for me, I sold my businesses, started a new career, packed up my house I'd lived in for 27 years, moved to a new state. I'm not going to say that was easy. Like there were times I'm like, am I crazy? What am I doing? It was not comfortable, but I felt the growth. I felt like I was bringing in so many new experiences. And the other thing that I felt was that I was finally aligning with my life meaning and my life purpose and my core values. And that is what has made me feel passionate and excited about going through what's so uncomfortable. And I just feel like it's meant to be somehow. I just think anytime to grow, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable before we get into the part where we're like, oh my God, thank God I did that. This feels amazing. Now I'm living this better version of my life.
Growth is uncomfortable. And I think
Oh,
that discomfort can be especially intense for women like us who are used to being the capable one. We're the one that keeps going, that keeps producing, keeps holding everyone else together. Why do you think that high capacity women stay in that survival mode for so long, even when they know something's not working anymore? Is it fear? Is it conditioning? Perfectionism? What is it?
I think it's all of that. High functioning women, right? We're used to, just like you said, being the ones who keep everything together. And there's a lot of people depending on us for that, right? I had all my employees, my kids, my husband, everyone's depending on me to keep everything together. And that's a lot of pressure. And I think, especially if you're someone who has been like hustle, 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 work, 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 go, 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 right? You're used to kind of pushing over and not listening to what's really going on inside. And really, you know, there's something that happens when your whole life you've been a people pleaser, an overachiever, or just living in your like, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And you're overriding what your own body's calling for, that there starts to develop this like distrust inside. Like your body starts to feel like you're not going to take care of it. And so it creates this nervous system heightened response of like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe because I'm not going to be taken care of. Right. And so one thing I have to bring women back to like helping them to really hear their inner guidance and their inner wisdom. First of all, it starts with rebuilding healthy boundaries. They have to learn how to say no in order to say yes to what really takes care of them. And then learning how to trust themselves again. You know, even if it starts in little tiny things like you tell yourself you're going to rest after this, you need to rest after that. If you tell yourself you're going to work hard until 6 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, you need to stop, because that's how those little things, your body will start to trust that you're going to take care of it again. And when you start to develop that self-trust with your body, you also redevelop the ability to deeply listen to its wisdom, because the body will guide you. It will guide you towards, you know, what's the difference between fear and just, you know, the nervousness of like a growth, but it's really the right thing for you. You have to know how to listen to your body. And I think it's really important to just develop a healthy relationship with your body and know that your body can trust you to take care of it. There's another thing that I think is really important in overachievers or high achieving women. I think another thing I've realized for myself that I had to really bring in and what I've been working on with a lot of my clients too is self-compassion. Because, you know, we make ourselves feel guilty. Most high functioning women that push their boundaries are kind of judgmental and critical of themselves, which then carries out to others. And so something that helps heal that override and that push and like is like learning how to soften inside and like have some self-compassion and just accept our humanness, accept our imperfections, accept that when we need a break, we're not lazy. We're human and we need a rest, and that's actually not a bad thing. And, all those things, ways that we've like judged ourselves. I think that all those pieces, are what stop women from listening inside. They don't know how to trust their body. They're afraid to let others down. They're not sure if what's being called to them is accurate or not accurate, or if it'll lead them off the deep end, or if it's really a thing that's going to be a beautiful thing. And then for me, I was clear. I knew that guidance was something coming from my soul, my deeper, bigger, aligned self. I knew it. And I still was afraid to take the step. I just had to work through all the things, all the limited thinking, all of the fears that were getting in the way, all of the reasons why my fear would tell me I wouldn't be able to pay my bills, my life would blow up. I just had to kind of work through all of that and have a practical, realistic plan. I didn't want to just jump off the cliff like I'm going for it. Who cares?
I just heard so much good stuff in what you just said, including like at some point just pushing through stops becoming resilience and really becomes like self-abandonment. And even when you see that finally and start making some changes to take better care of yourself, you mentioned fear. And I'm sure that a lot of women have this fear of, okay, I realize this, but how do I make changes without, like you said, blowing up your whole life? When you're helping people move toward a more aligned life or career, what does that actually look like, being able to make smaller changes and not blow everything up?
I think the first step is helping women to listen inside to what is being called from inside. If they're being called to make a transition, if they're suddenly feeling like, I do not like my life anymore, this is not making me happy, this does not feel good, I can't keep doing this, whatever the thing is, I really start to help women to hear that voice, to listen to it, and to start to make a plan so that some part of their nervous system can relax, that there's going to be something done about it. It's not just like, I'm going to keep pushing, I don't know what's happening. No, we're going to start listening. We're going to start listening to what is being called. What is it? Like I often say to women who are starting to feel this but don't know what to do, like, you don't want to be in your rocking chair when you're 90, rocking on your porch, looking back on your life and feeling like, dang, I never lived what I wanted to. You just don't want to do that. So let's start to tune in and hear, what is your purpose here? What did you come here for? What is being called in your heart? What are your passions? And then we start to make a plan for how can you start to go towards that while still keeping a functioning job, because it takes time. There's a client that I have that I'm working with who couldn't stay in her job anymore. She had to leave, but she had to get some kind of a side job while we're working on what her true passion project is. So we just kind of like slow the whole process down. I think that's the key, right? When we don't listen and we get afraid, that's when we might just take a quick jump off the cliff, and it's very fast and not well thought out. So I like to just slow the whole process down. Make sure that the part of us that's really longing or calling for something is feeling heard and listened to, and then just start making a plan. Start making actionable steps towards it. Let's start making a plan towards that goal. What's the first step? What's the second step? How can you start getting, because usually if someone's making a career shift, they need to upgrade their skills in some level. They need some kind of a training. They need some kind of outer structure for the new, whatever it is they're going to be doing. So we just start to take the steps. What is that thing that you need to build? What is the next? Do you need more education? Do you need more skills training? Do you need to get a certification in something? Do you need to learn from somebody? Start working towards that while still keeping your job. But something in you starts to settle down when you know you're heading towards it. So that's what I like to do. And all of coaching is about when you have some big goal that you have and you're here, most people just feel so overwhelmed. How do I get from here to here, right? And coaching is a lot about helping people to break it down into small, actionable steps so that you're going towards it. You're not overwhelming your system What's the next best, clear, achievable, small, actionable step to get you closer to that goal and closer to that goal? And little by little, then they're there. And if they're starting some kind of a new career, I know for a lot of coaches, they start coaching while still keeping their job. But as they build clients, there becomes a point when they're like, you know what? I'm making enough money that I can leave my job now and go for this full time. I didn't do that.
I didn't do that either. But I love what you said, because I think so many women think that reinventing their life has to be dramatic, when
Right.
often it can start with smaller, steadier choices and rebuilding trust. Maybe get a coach to help you come up with a plan to do things in a more sustainable way. I
Yeah.
think also for a lot of women, that process of rebuilding trust is a process of reconnection, not just with their goals, but with themselves. What have you seen reconnection look like with your clients when someone's feeling disconnected from themselves, their body, their purpose? Where do you help them start?
This is so much of the work that I do. I kind of already spoke to it, but it's a lot about boundaries is the first thing. It's always the first thing I work on with people who are disconnected is I feel like when people start feeling disconnected, it's like a sign that there's not healthy boundaries in place. So the first step I help people work on is bringing healthy boundaries back into their life, which often means learning how to say no in order to say yes to something that's healthy for you. And then we work through the guilt. There's always guilt that comes up when people first start learning to say yes to themselves. So that's the first step. And then the second part of disconnection to me is when we're not connected to our bodies. There's some part of us that just lost connection to being able to trust our body. We live too much in our head, too much in the, I should do this, I need to do that, like the overthinking thing. And I'm an energy healer and I like to work somatically. So a lot of times when I hear someone like, even someone starting to get frantic or they are just seem disconnection, I always bring them into the body. I either help them to ground or then I start to say, okay, where are you feeling that in your body? Why don't you put your hand there? I just start to help them reconnect to their body and into the now. Like a lot of times also when people feel disconnected, it's because they're living too much in the past or too much in the future, which is all in the mind, right? Because when you really start to get into like neuroscience or spirituality, the only thing that exists is right here, right now. Everything else just lives in our head. The future, the past, right? So if we're just in our head, that kind of puts us in sometimes feeling really disconnected. So a way to also connect is just I bring the person right back to like breathe, just be here right now. I do like nervous system calming things like different breathing, different tapping things, sometimes just different ear pulling things, just things that help. Let's calm the overthinking down. Let's calm the nervous system down. Let's just be in your body right here, right now. And that helps to bring back a sense of connection to
What you said has just reminded me that sometimes reconnection doesn't just happen like internally or your body. Sometimes it can happen through other people and through building community. And you and I reconnected after decades apart and realized we were both walking through these huge midlife reinventions at the same time. I know this experience has taught me so much about the power of community and vulnerability and women supporting each other through change. What have you learned from it?
I've been part of a women's circle. So to me, women supporting women, I love it. And eventually I want to start another women's circle or council group. Feeling connection is so healing. And so much in our world, we're so disconnected from true human contact, heart to heart contact, support. It's also part of what I love about energy healing. It's like the deepest form of connection you can imagine. Like when I'm giving someone an energy healing, I put my energy hands deep into their soul and connect on the deepest level. And it just like, I just feel like we need connection. I mean, we need touch. Like babies that aren't touched die. Like we need connection. And specifically in this reconnection with you, Jen, has been just so sweet and so special to me. It just makes me think of like, you just never know what's going to happen in life. Like if someone had probably shared with me way back when, like when you're in your 50s, you're going to reconnect with Jen and you guys are going to be on a podcast together, I would have been like, no way. Like you just never know these beautiful miracles that show up in life. But I have so enjoyed our conversations going through a huge transition that it's not easy. It's been a little scary. It's been destabilizing in some ways. It's exciting and I feel really happy, but it's scary. So it's so special to me to like just be able to connect with another woman my exact age that knew me even when I was young, that's going through a similar thing where you just totally 180'd your life and started a whole new career. And I feel so inspired by you and what you're creating and how you're like learning to listen to your body and, you know, just starting a whole new way of living. That's totally not easy and so brave. And so just, I don't know, just having somebody else who's doing like a whole 180 in their life it's really nice to share, you know, because most women our age are living the same old, same old. And not to say, I mean, maybe they've been happy all along and that's great, but it's just been really fun to reconnect with someone who's like totally reinvented themselves too. And I don't know, I've just felt support and yeah, it just has felt really amazing.
I feel the same way. And it does feel especially important because I think that so many women are trying to navigate major changes alone. And that isolation can make everything feel even heavier than it really is, right?
Yes.
So, for the woman who might be listening who feels scared or stuck or like it might be too late for them to change, what do you want her to know about beginning again in midlife?
It's never too late. I'll always remember that when I went to college, which was right after high school. So I'm like 19 years old in a lecture hall. And I remember sitting next to me was like a 74-year-old woman who was like, I just wanted to learn something. I never got a chance to go to college. And I thought, why not? It's not too late. And just those kinds of stories inspire me. Also, another story like that is when Carlo and I were hiking to the base camp of Mount Everest, which was hard. I was in my 20s. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, carrying this huge backpack, trekking for days in these high altitude. Like, it was amazing. And it was so hard. And it taught me so much about how to just keep going even when things are hard. But there was a couple that were in their 70s doing it. And the same thing they said is, I've always wanted to do it. We realized if we didn't do it now, we'd never get to do it. So I just feel like it's never too late. There's a type of therapy called existential therapy. It's a type of therapy that helps people to face that reality that we die. So when you face that reality, what does that do for you about how you're going to live? And the other part of that is when you face that you're going to die, it helps you to find true life meaning, right? So, like, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave in the world? How do you want to impact the world? How do you want to serve? You know, what have you gone through that might have been so hard and wounding, but you can then use that for what you've learned from it or what you've had to be resilient through or what you've had to overcome to help others who might be going through that. This is what gives life purpose and meaning and passion and honestly joy. And it's never too late. It's never too late because even if you do it towards the end of your life, you'll at least feel like you did that. So that's what I say. And the other thing I want to say is like, it's scary. Like we already talked about, it's scary to make a transition. It's scary to try something new. It's scary to take a risk. And I really believe in getting support. Whether it's you have a women's circle that supports you, you get a coach. Coaching to me is amazing. Like I coach people, but a lot of my coaches, you know, us as coaches feel like everybody needs a coach. Like it just is something that I feel like life is not easy. We have blind spots. We don't see where our thinking is limited, or we don't sometimes see a doorway of possibility that somebody else looking from another direction can see. And we need a cheerleader. Sometimes we just need a cheerleader who's like, you can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. And who sees your true potential, you know, and helps you create the actionable steps. So yeah, I think getting support if you're feeling like you want to make a change and you're feeling scared, get support, get help, get a coach.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Everyone needs a coach, and even coaches need coaches.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I've learned from you is that it is possible to be both afraid and excited at the same time. As a coach, how do you help women hold both fear and possibility at the same time?
I definitely hold them both myself at the same time. And I try to be really honest about that, because this is something that a coach once said to me is because when I first started coaching, there was a part of me that felt like I didn't want to show my vulnerability as much. I wanted to be like, I'm a coach and I have it figured out, and she's like, no one wants to be coached by Superman. Like people want to be coached by real people that they can open up to and feel vulnerable with. Right. And that really helped me to be like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Of course. And so I try to be really real with people about my own feeling really brave at times and feeling really, really scared at times. I think how I help women with it in their bodies is coaching. You ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I'll have a teaching moment, but I ask a lot of questions to help people start to get in touch with the sensations in their body, the emotions in their body, what their body's feeling, how to honor what their body's feeling and not judge it. There's a lot of judgment sometimes around certain emotions. I try to just help create a new language around trust and even the emotions we might judge as negative. And they're trying to guide us to something. How can we listen? And sometimes if there's just a lot of fear, sometimes I'll do even through the computer, sometimes I'll do some energy work. Don't try to get rid of it, but just how can we truly be with whatever that is, wherever it is in the body, just be with it in acceptance, in love, just be deeply present. Where's the deepest part of that feeling? Let's just go right in there and be really present with it. And sometimes just by being present and acceptance, it'll start to loosen, So yeah, I think just everything lives in the body. It's just important to learn how to listen with compassion to what's going on inside of us.
I love what you said about vulnerability because I felt that in my journey as well. I think women especially suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes, and that keeps us from doing things that we really want to do. It definitely did that for me for a long time, but the way that I finally got over it was realizing that my audience and the women that I want to help don't need me to be perfect. They just need me to show up and share what I know. And that was really motivating for me. So thank you for that.
Totally. Yeah. Imposter syndrome is huge. I definitely still come up with it sometimes. Who do I think I am trying to coach businesses? I only own restaurants. What do I know about business? It's just refreshing to know that you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to want to be deeply real and deeply present and want the best for people.
Well, before we wrap up, I always love to leave listeners with one final anchor. And I always ask the same question of my guests. If our listeners could take away only one message from today, what do you hope that is?
That's a hard one. There's so many things. I guess just learning to trust themselves, and whatever that means. Trust yourself and what you're being called to, learning how to trust your body, learning how to develop whatever self-trust you need. But I think when you can learn how to trust yourself, that incorporates learning how to have healthy boundaries, learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to have compassion. Really learning how to trust yourself will guide you to wherever you need and all the right ways, just a solid enough container through, because it is going to be scary. You are going to be vulnerable. You are going to go through uncomfortable things. But if you know how to just feel safe and trust yourself in your body, then that's what I hope for everyone.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story and having this conversation with so much honesty and heart. For everyone listening, I hope this episode reminded you that even if your old life no longer fits, that doesn't mean that you're broken. It may mean you're becoming someone new, and that counts. If you want to connect with Melissa or book a complimentary consultation with her, I'll put that information in the show notes for everyone. I'll also include links so you can follow both of us on social media, and you can also always reach me at info@reinventionwithjenfast.com. And if this episode spoke to you, please make sure you're subscribed, share it with a friend who needs to hear these messages, and leave a 5-star review. That really does help more women find the show. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time on The Comeback Show.